I really like this image of churning sea foam I photographed at Point Lobos while on a hike with my mother. The first painting from it was on wooden panel. Revisiting the subject matter, I am painting a mirror image of the first version on a larger scale canvas. I am outlining the largest forms, tracing a projection of the first painted version. Also, I'm holding a reversed image of the original photograph in my hand as reference. I like to begin a painting on a ground of layered red and green. The complementary colors create a shimmer effect that tricks my eye and helps it to defocus beyond the surface, enforcing the illusion that the canvas is a window. Once I feel satisfied with the placement of the main shapes, and when I can no longer resist the impulse to paint, I mix generous piles of mid-tone colors on my palette that will be used to block in the composition. The colors I am using at this point all have pigments with low tinting strengths. This way I can more easily make changes to the wet paint layer by adding and mixing directly onto the canvas. I like the effect of this subdued palette as it relates traditionally to tonalist painters and James McNeill Whistler. In the beginning, I concentrate on the placement of the big forms and their relationship to each other, keeping in mind the proportions of the compositional rectangle. At this stage, I am working with large brushes in big areas of color. Later, I will use smaller brushes to define edges and to build contrast and complementary relationships. This approach ensures that there is a generous amount of paint on the canvas, a value that carries on from California painting traditions such as the Bay Area figurative and abex painters, who are known for using copious amounts of paint. I developed the water on the outer edges of the composition to contain the foam. The large viridian shapes of water press against the foam mass and its tendency to expand. After the overall flow of the composition is worked out, I can attend to medium-sized shapes and eventually details. Between each stage of development and after each day of work, I take a few moments to blend and soften the strokes of areas that I will still work on. The softness of a blurred image is easier to refine and manipulate the next day. I begin the painting with big forms, working the overall structure of the composition, the macro. As I finish a painting and feel more secure about the placement of things, I bring in the exact edges of objects, pop highlights, and crispen details, the micro. As I develop the image, the process where I'm honing in from the macro to the micro, the foam elements are in a state of flux, floating around in the same way as when I photographed it, looking down over the cliff at the edge of Point Lobos. Driven by the undulating tide, waves churn and crash against rock, creating sudsy clumps of spongy sea foam. With lines and shapes, my paint strokes represent these active forces. The dance on the water's surface is like the settling and shifting of the painted composition. My process of painting synchronizes to the life of the subject matter. My brush strokes become forces, and my determined artistic willpower to create the painting acts akin to the moon's gravitational pull.